Be a visionary with debonair, a playa from the Himalayas, iconic, not ironic, and become a night owl tonight, where like-minded members get together at the Night Owl Lounge, enjoying extra content, backstage hangouts, exclusive interviews by going to realdealmedia.tv/membership. Again, that's realdealmedia.tv/membership. Join tonight.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to Late Night Update here. Real Deal Media is one of our oldest franchises as we give you the quick late night updates that you deserve. I'm your late night host, Dean Ryan, and we had to cut the band and let him go, give him the pink slips. Anyways, welcome here tonight. We have some key stories to get into this evening, this very late evening, wherever you may be, as we are broadcasting virtually everywhere. Yes, we're going to be getting to some things regarding the Middle East, as well as some indictments that have now come down, one in particular, and the new strategy for the uncivil unrest in the United States that is being fermented, and plotted and thwarted by the Democrats themselves, if we can still call them that. And towards the little second half of this very late night show, we're going to be getting into some clips that I think that you have to see, where Ivan Raiklin, former Green Beret, was just recently on Alex Jones in some stunning revelations as he really lays it out on what we need to expect come this election. And I'll tell you what I think and what I feel is going to be taking place the sooner we get to that segment, second half here tonight. So you don't want to miss that. We'll be analyzing some clips. Just very telling, very telling. Anyways, let's get started here, because some really incredible things have now taken place. Well, it's starting with the Puff Daddy indictment. This is massive. And let me tell you about this. It's more than just another musical mogul who's just gone down. There are a lot of implications, as this is just underway, as it just happened today. And if you've heard about it, you probably haven't heard all about it. But yes, Puff Daddy, Sean Combs, has now been indicted on sex trafficking, racketeering, kidnapping charges, and probably more that we're unaware of at this moment. Yes, he's now a criminal defendant in sex trafficking, racketeering, the whole nine, as he's been charged with those 3 counts as of just now. sex trafficking by force, to just name a few. Well, according to the indictment from 2008 to present, members of the Sean Combs enterprise allegedly engaged sex trafficking, forced labor, interstate transportation, purposes of prostitution, coercion, enticement to engage in prostitution, narcotics, offenses, kidnapping, arson, bribery, obstruction of justice. Oh, yeah. According to this indictment, the purpose of Combs Enterprise was to operate a global business in the media, entertainment, and lifestyle industries. Well, the purpose also included preserving Diddy's power, fulfilling his personal desires, especially in relation to his sexual gratification, including the exploitation of women and the use of commercial sex workers. Wow. Well, the indictment mentions the now famous, quote, freak-off parties, calling them elaborate and produced sex performances that Combs arranged, directed, and did other things to himself while watching, often electronically recorded. The indictment alleges that Sean Combs lured women into his orbit under the pretense of romantic relationship and then used force, threats of force, coercion to cause victims to engage in extended sexual acts and liaisons that they did not want to get into with, including but not limited to, male commercial sex workers, called, we know them as gigolos. Well, after these so-called freak-offs, the Combs and Co. Victims typically received IV fluids to recover from the physical exertion and drug use. Wow. The indictment does not include details on the kidnapping allegations, and other than they occurred in California, as did the arson and bribery. Now, as for the drug charges, they allegedly involved the intent to distribute narcotics, including cocaine, Oxycontin, Xanax, GHB, the date rape drug, MDMA, and ketamine. The indictment references what seized during the raids of Diddy's home in Beverly Hills and Miami, various freak-off supplies, including narcotics and more than 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant. They've also managed to seize several firearms, including 3 AR-15s with defaced serial numbers and a drum magazine, to say the least. Now, this is just really some wild stuff, but let me tell you a bit more about this, because there's a lot of implications now underway, as you might have been aware of. Now, from what I'm gathering, there was allegedly more than 250 cameras in Sean Puff Daddy Combs' home alone. 250 in one of these homes. And there's a connection between Rachel Chandler, NXIVM, Epstein, and a whole lot more that we're just about to find out, a whole Mossad operation. But this is what's very telling. As this arrest was pending today, I'm going to tell you now what took place, as a multitude of high-level execs to low-level to just people you're like, whoa, we didn't even know that, have now stepped down in the past 24 hours. Some of them include the following: Kevin Lyles, a music executive; Eric Pryor, president of Fine Arts; Jonathan Holloway, Rutgers president, Rutgers University; Robert B. Davis, general manager of Martha's Vineyard; Chris Cameron, lacrosse coach; Kathy Newsom, Bay City mayor; LaMonica McIver, Newark City councilman; Allison Green of a company called Tish Dean, no relation; Craig Maldre of Fifth Ward, Geneva; Joseph Kirshner, doctor; Mike Foster, president of NXIVM Travel; Susie Williams, an executive director. On and on. I mean, we're talking chief prosecutors, MFA directors, assistant coaches, chief ministers, and a lot of doctors. It's just, the list goes on, and that's not even a fraction of the amount of participators and practitioners in what is now turning out to be a Mossad brownstone operation with FBI, CIA written all over the damn thing. You better believe it. Now, moving on here. In addition to that, there's also now a new explosion happening across the Middle East, as the onslaught of just the invasion, we should say, of the migrants and the uptick of crimes, although the mainstream media will tell you otherwise. But an explosion across the Middle East is now taking place. There's a little report filed for Late Night Update just for you and yours. Check this out. We'll discuss in greater detail after. Donald Trump has repeatedly blamed illegal immigrants in the U.S. for fueling violent crime, saying immigrants, especially undocumented ones, are causing spikes in crime.
And Kamala have done to the families here with me and so many others, thousands and thousands of others. Not only killed, also really badly hurt to a point where they'll never lead a normal life again. It's shameful and it's evil.
His talking points have also been amplified by politicians and certain media outlets.
Rural America has been affected by this terrible poison the drug cartels are bringing in as much as anybody. We have got to close down the border and stop the cartels from bringing this poison into our communities. We've got to re-implement basic law and order and public safety policy.
Republicans have highlighted cases such as the killing of nurses, students, Blake and Riley, allegedly by a migrant from Venezuela. Data from the U.S. Customs and Border Protection has shown that non-U.S. citizens arrested with criminal convictions have spiked from 2,400 in 2020, 14,697 in 2024. However, Border Patrol arrests totaled 124,220 in January 2024, down 50%. And undocumented crimes and immigrants are down, but the mainstream media would have you believe just that. The people on the streets, the good people, the natural-born people, they know the truth. At least 12 people, including 2 children, were killed, thousands more injured, many seriously, after pagers used by the armed group Hezbollah to communicate dramatically exploded across the country. The blast began in Lebanon's capital, Beirut, and several other areas of the country around 3:45 p.m. September 17th. Witnesses reported seeing smoke coming from people's pockets before seeing small explosions that sounded like fireworks and gunshots. On September 18th, the Associated Press reported that 9 individuals lost their lives and over 300 were injured due to additional explosions linked to walkie-talkies in southern Beirut. A Hezbollah source told American News that 2 of the deceased were sons of Hezbollah's MPs, and a Hezbollah member's daughter was also killed. Iran's ambassador to Lebanon, Mojtaba Amani, was among the injured, but Iranian media reported that his injuries were minor. It's alleged that Mossad, Israel's spy agencies, are responsible for the attacks. The devices in question are AR-924 model pagers manufactured at VAC Consultant KFT, a company based in Budapest, Hungary. According to Taiwanese company Gold Apollo, whose branding was reportedly seen on the destroyed remains, analysts said that most likely explanation was a supply chain attack that saw pagers tampered with during manufacture or transit. Reuters quoted a Lebanese security source as saying that the small quantity of explosives had been placed inside the devices months ago. The blast came just hours after Israel's security cabinet made the safe return of residents to the north, the country, and official War Gold states. For Late Night Update, this is Dean Ryan. Pretty stunning, isn't it? If you're like me and you saw that, you're saying to yourself, wait a minute, people are still using pagers? What are they, doctors or drug dealers? Yeah, there's more to this too. This now comes on the heels of what has now been voted on by the UN, about 142 to 14 to stop the onslaught of the offensive strikes of Israel in Gaza, which Israel says, no, we don't think so. But so this is what apparently happened. Hezbollah devices exploded all over the place, as far as starting in Beirut, Lebanon, exploded again, raising fears of wider Israel conflict now. 20 killed, 450 injured. And now what happened was, during my looking into this, a lot of the carriers of this got rid of the high tech. So the smartphones went to low tech, thinking it would be a safer bet. And then this is what happened. So the IDF, who intercept all transmissions going in and out of Gaza and Hezbollah, has to go through them. They have all the intel. They pretend they don't. did a switcheroo, to use that very unscientific term, in the transport of these devices from Eastern Europe into Lebanon, into Gaza, and so forth. So this is just, people who are praising this need to understand that what happens in Gaza, what happens in the Middle East, comes right back here home to roost. And don't forget that. Don't forget, our little slave devices can do the same. So this is very troubling if you haven't figured that out, and probably more of a reason now to get into the satellite phones, isn't it? Anyways, very interesting, very interesting. Now, as I'm telling you this now, U.S. soldiers have now moved to Alaska Island amid Russian military activity increasing in the area. That's true. Before we get to what's this going to look like back here in North America at home, and I'm including Canada in that region. Well, the U.S. military has now moved about 130 soldiers along the mobile rocket launchers to Desolate Island over there in the Aleutian chain of Western Alaska. Very beautiful, I hear. Amid a recent increase in Russian military planes and vessels approaching American territories. Now, 8 Russian military planes and 4 Navy vessels, including 2 submarines, have come close to Alaska in the past week as Russia and China conducted joint military drills. None of the planes now have breached U.S. airspace, and a Pentagon spokesperson who's definitely familiar with this matter said Tuesday that there was no cause for alarm. Getting back in the bus. Well, here's a quote. It's not the first time we've seen Russians and Chinese flying, in the vicinity, and that's something that we obviously closely monitor, and it's also something that we're prepared to respond to. Pentagon spokesperson Major General Pat Ryder said on a news conference just today. It's part of a, quote, force projection operation. The Army on September 12th sent soldiers to the Shemaya Island, roughly about 1,200 miles, that's about 1,900 kilometers southwest of Anchorage, where the U.S. Air Force maintains an air station that dates all the way back to World War II. Now, the soldiers brought 2 high-mobility artillery rocket systems with them. This is just incredible. Military exercises are just ramping up. But let me just present this to you, that understanding that the assassination attempt, the sequel, didn't really work out, and the acceleration of war is not really going the way of the deep state buffalo, just in the way they want it. We told you, sharing the intel we got from Mike Adams, that you're going to be seeing the rats scurry from the upper echelon of the FBI, the CIA, Department of Homeland Security. That's the big one, in FEMA. Now, just weeks ago, within the past 2 to 3 weeks, we also got wind and word of the entire White House, once again, in places around the District of Criminals, being boarded up, fenced around, and also anticipation of something. Now, what is that anticipation? And I present to you that if we know the rats are scurrying, is there going to be an intercept of these people under the big worldwide military drill we told you about? This is the big build-up to the nuke scare under the worldwide military drill called ZIL, Z-I-L. You're not going to hear that anywhere else. We told you this is coming straight from the Defense Ministry of the United Kingdom. But what's that going to look like back here at home? Is there going to be an election? I beg to differ. I'm not pretty positive there is going to be an election. That I have a feeling that there's going to be an arrest, massive arrest that was supposed to have taken place under Operation Warp Speed, but the chain of command stopped it under the threat of blowing up the entire East Coast in January, the second weekend of January 2021 onward, which we reported to you first in December of 2020. And it was going to be blamed on China, but yet done by Mossad of Israel. And here we are. So what do I see happening is the election 2020 get overturned. And the treason scum of this country, the treason scum of the Five Eyes network of Canada, UK, all scurrying to far off islands, God knows where. And that's what the interception points are for. That's what we're anticipating, aren't we? So we're going to watch Ivan Raiklin, who was just on Alex Jones today. This is an incredible, just a few segments. We're going to check this out. And I think he puts it so eloquently into perspective that you can digest and share from tonight's incredible showcasing here. Let's check this out. Ivan Raiklin, former Green Beret. We showcased him before earlier today. Here he is.
I appreciate it. So yeah, I think big picture, we need to take a look at, a lot of people are focused in on the presidential election, right? The bigger thing that I think people need to understand is that going into this election cycle, we have not only the presidential and vice presidential election, we also have the Congress. You know, every 2 years, 435 members have to re-up their positions, and then the 1/3 of the U.S. Senate. So as it applies to the House, imagine if, for example, somehow miraculously they allow President Trump back into office, right? January 20th, he's going to get sworn in. That still doesn't mean that he's going to be able to implement any of the policies that he's been campaigning on. And what I mean by that is that if you have a Democrat House, the very first thing that Jamie Raskin has already indicated that he's going to be doing is essentially create what Alex just said, civil war conditions. Well, what does that mean? When you look at the constitutional calendar, November 5th, we have the election. And then the states certify transmit. January 3rd, the new House comes into office. So 3 days before the joint session certification, you have a new House of Representatives and a new Senate, depending on the makeup. Imagine if we lose the House with a Democrat House and you have Speaker of the House, Hakeem Jeffries. Guess what? Jamie Raskin is then going to file his draft bill, which is going to label January 6th of 2021 an insurrection and President Trump as an insurrectionist. And thus, from their perspective, they're trying to block Trump from even being seated on January 20th under the framework of the 14th Amendment, Section 3. That's what they are thinking. So like we talked about, a couple times that I've been in studio, we're wargaming here. We're trying to figure out what they can do constitutionally within the limits of the Constitution. And then based on previous precedent, what are they willing to do beyond that constitutional and legal framework to achieve their political objectives legally? And from their perspective, they're conducting it illegally. So when you understand that, then you have to come up with strategies to be able to counter that. Well, what does that look like? Okay, how do we remove Jamie Raskin, for example, from being a member of Congress? That's going to be a heavy lift because, well, it's a majority Democrat district. Well, how do we make it so that we create as much opportunity to be able to control the House? Here's where it gets a little messy. So when you look at the dynamics, and Alex mentioned that I've been basically self-interning at the Capitol from January of 2023 to, I'm still going out. Next week, I'm going to probably be up there again. And as I've been observing, assessing, analyzing, interacting, not only sitting behind the scenes, right behind the biggest scum executive branch witnesses, whether it's Chris Wray, I call him Chris Ray Epps, Mayorkas, Ali Mayorkas, right, who was impeached, or any of these other executive branch scum, I'm basically trying to convey to them and understand where the loyalties lie. And one thing that a lot of people fail to understand is that the threat from Kevin McCarthy and his stranglehold and influence over the Republican conference, along with former Speaker Paul Ryan, is still pretty evident. They're operating behind the scenes. And I think that if they end up allowing, the Uniparty allows President Trump into office, it will be under the conditions that they set for him in 2016, but there's going to have to be a bigger vice around him. In 2016, it was Mike Pence he was basically the Uniparty handler of Trump for the Bush-Cheney syndicate. Now that they have a J.D. Vance as the VP pick and an RFK basically going to be in the administration, I think that the Uniparty is going to try to create a chief of staff, Kevin McCarthy.
Well, we know that. Just interrupt. Just like they're passing legislation to lock in Ukraine funding outside of Trump.
Correct. Going into this next fiscal year ends in 2 weeks at the end of this month. So then they're basically going through the continuing resolution process. Speaking of which, and speaking of speakers, Kevin McCarthy was the speaker for 9 months. What did we do? What did we see? Absolutely nothing. All he did was send money to Ukraine, and he continued to weaponize our government against President Trump. funding a new FBI bill. And same thing with Mike Johnson. So
and that's all extremely important. I'm glad you covered it, but I'm more concerned about getting there. It's good to war game out even that far. Some people say, Alex, you shouldn't be worried about the next 47 days of the election. And I am focused on that, but then I say 80%, but the rest I'm focused on the 76 days when he's president-elect and the civil war conditions they say they're going to set up. How do we block that? I mean, they're not playing around here. And they're all over the TV. Hillary, all of them saying we're going to arrest you. They're passing bills, California to arrest people for speech. I mean, they are preparing the battle space and trying to get it just normalized. They're testing their perch to really roll out a Soviet-style takeover.
No, I agree. So I think there's two components here. At an individual level, everybody that's listening in needs to essentially find someone that still consumes the legacy media or is still using big tech platforms that censor. We need to pull all those people off. You need to off-ramp them. One way to do that is to say, hey, guess what? Did you see the admission letter by Mark Zuckerberg where he admitted to committing what? Genocide is one of the components of that admission letter. Number two, he also admitted to.
Okay, I'm gonna stop it there, but you kind of get the gist of this whole thing here. So let's talk about this a little bit here. Speaker Johnson, who is totally compromised, 8 ways to Sunday, if not more, totally compromised. But they're all compromised. It's who owns the blackmail. Like Netanyahu, bad guy, but it's controlling him by controlling the blackmail and the cover-up of it. Like, for instance, Mike Johnson, yeah, we know he was adopting a 14-year-old from Dominican Republic when he was 25 years old. And probably that kind of just nefarious act gets you even considered to be a Speaker of the House. But if we rewind it a little bit, look back about what he's done. First of all, when he was giving conferences of this year, I found it very peculiar how Donald Trump was always seemingly on stage with him, which you've never seen before. Just take that in the note and put it in the back of your mind. But what they were doing were sending a lot of ammunition and a lot of weaponry to Ukraine. Well, what we found out later after that, well, we had Illinois Senate leader at one point, majority leader of the Democrats, Dick Durbin, literally stand on the Senate floor and say that we will give Dreamers full citizenship if they join the United States Army. Now think about that for a minute. So now we have an armed class of third world dreamers, to use their term, who are going to violate Posse Comitatus, patrolling the streets under civil unrest, but they don't have the ammunition when the American people do, and especially when the American people are going to be deputized with a little help from our friends, and you can fill in the blank at your own leisure. And what does that mean exactly? Well, it means when you have the third world dreamers who don't even know what the Bill of Rights, who don't even know what the Constitution means, who don't even know anything about this country. What they do know is if they don't follow along to get along, they're going to be deported, boom, just like that. Won't get their citizenship in their Mayor Boondoggle ATM, a $10,000 limit card. So this is an interesting playbook of how this is going to go down. And it's no easy fix. There's not one pill. So, you put Trump in there, you put the just very below average, whatever VP, JD Vance in there, who's no Pence. What I don't think Ivan understands is Pence was brought into the Trump circle by Steve Bannon when they visited Indiana in about 2015, 2016, in hopes of getting the evangelical vote, which we kind of see that coming around again, and the youth vote. I don't understand it. I don't agree with it, but it's troubling to say the least. But even if he gets in there, I don't even see a peaceful transition of power. The only way, we are sitting in the same seat that we were sitting in at the end of 2020, going into 2021 now. We are seeing a collide and collision and clash of civilizations now. And we're playing a very deadly game of chicken. Who's going to be swerving first here? Because there's not going to be a peaceful transition of power. There's not going to be a 2025 inauguration with Trump and everybody there. There's going to go, this is a military operation, but whose military is it? And who's going to be at the receiving end of the barrel of diplomacy? That's how we have to really configure how this is going to go here. In addition to Canada now having a out of nowhere election coming up here, where you have Mr. Sikh, who was always playing footsies with Trudeau, who's going to be, picking up the baggage there, playing heel a little bit, wink, wink, to keep Pierre Poilievre out of there. And that's very important, too, because a free United States cannot exist with a usurped neighbor to the north, because when it comes down to it, the United States will be going to war with another neighbor that's going to be coming from down south, Mexico, because the cartels have some huge weaponry like the North Vietnamese were getting from China during the Vietnam War. Now China, who's been just nesting in Mexico since 2013 and beyond and prior, that's the real war. That's the real Hezbollah, not the created one funded and authored by Netanyahu. That's the real Norco cartel. Just the livelihood of the skinwalkers, just kidnapping everybody. They all exist in the cartels who are funded by the deep state, if you know what I'm saying. My head's spinning 360 degrees right now, virtually right now. There's so much to just put into just one little capsule here. So we are sitting on the prefaces of just major civil unrest, but civil war. But this is World War III on American soil. And I cannot see a peaceful election going forward here. And somebody is going to have to shoot their way out of an existence that is being placed upon the American people and the rest of free humanity. So here we are right there. So we're going to end it there now. Getting anxiety beyond belief here. A lot of people, a lot of people are commenting on this. This is something else here. This is truly something else. And they know they can't win, too. They know they can't win. So we're going to get out of here. We're going to end this here. But let me just say that this is a people-powered show, and I'm very, very blessed knowing that and being part of this. As we're going to finish this journey that we all started together here. I never thought I would be on this train still, but we are here, and this is coming to that finish line. But how are we going to finish this? Who's going to be the true victorians to tell this story? Who's going to be truly writing the history books and surviving the monstrosity of an evil, wicked, nefarious enemy that's invisible and it's embedded in every fabric of society as we go forward into the future, which we are destined to do. So on that note, I want to thank you for joining this late night update. I will be back tomorrow night with a What Say You, with some major Canadian updates tomorrow night. You don't want to miss that. I will try to get Mr. Ivan Raiklin on when the time's right. And there should be some huge news coming from me very soon that I can't really relay at this moment, but this is some big stuff going on behind the scenes. Mountain moving, ground shaking that I will tell you at the appropriate time. So in the meanwhile, I want to thank all of the Real Deal members. If you're not a member, you're missing out. We're going to be doing some backstage stuff, I believe, here tonight. You can become a Real Deal Media member, become a Night Owl. Go to realdealmedia.tv/membership. Become a visionary debonair, be iconic, not ironic, and a player from the Himalayas as we just glide into the future, because the future is coming on. Until next time, for all of us here at Late Night Updates, I'm Dean Ryan saying thank you for giving and sharing all your donations and wonderful and sharing a bit of your night. Until next time, always remember to stay tuned and stay awake. Good night, everybody.